Hello, hello. Looks like we're on. Open the Q&A app. So, welcome to today's webinar. Oh, and I can actually see someone today as well. Hello. I don't know whether you can hear me. So this was just a quick session that we decided to do off the back of last week's Getting to Grips webinar in reference to several questions, just with some specific questions in relation to working with autistic young people. Oh, I've lost a view. We did have Rich Simpson on, but he seems to have gone now. So I just wanted to go through a few things that have, we've learned over time and through the research and different things that we've applied in relation to using Skoog, this lovely squidgy fellow, in the context of working with young people with autism. So if you've got any questions, please submit them through the Q&A app, and you can check that out there, and I will answer questions as they come in. If in advance of that, I would just say a couple of things. The tactile nature of the Skoog object is really appealing to autistic people. There are those. I mean, some people can be tactile avoidant, etc. But there's something about its squishiness that really appeals. And in conjunction with that, one thing that I have found a lot is the use of the woodwind sound is also about the woodwind sounds and the presence of the air in the sound, the breathiness, and that's something that people seem to really identify with, and is a really useful tool for hooking people in and keying people in. The other thing that's really useful and is something to focus on is the object nature of it, and the fact that you have this three-dimensional object. It's not a piano or a guitar that can sit that creates a barrier between you and the other person, or in terms of skill barriers. So this is something that can be placed on the table, on the ground, between you and your client, or beside you both, and something you can both play together. And what it can really support and is really effective in supporting is improvisation. Now, you don't have to be a conservatoire trained or level musician to engage in improvisation. You don't have to, I think all you have to do is be open and responsive to what the client is doing or what your student is doing, and it can literally start very simply as just a touch on the side, and then leaving space. So the important thing with improvisation in this context is making sure you leave space, an appropriate space for an individual to respond in, and then simply again trying to invite their response, and not trying, you might be playing a phrase and saying something and the space that I'm leaving there is just sort of in time with what I'm playing. But actually, if I was working with a young person, you need to pad that around a little bit, and it may be more like, still waiting to invite, still waiting to invite. So you have to, make sure there's space, make sure there's room, and don't crowd, too much. So it's great for improvisation. Improvisation can start very simply as imitation. So in terms of working with someone, so you can make a sound on the Skoog and invite that individual to make a sound on the Skoog, or not even formally invite them, but just having it there, and you touch it and wait, leave space, and actually to back away from it, to allow them room to involve in it themselves, and slowly working on that to imitate, and then it's just all you have to do then is elaborate slightly, and you'll almost definitely find that the young people that you're working with will move on to the elaboration very quickly. So I might play, and the young person might play, so I might play, and then that might lead to So you can either keep expanding the phrase, or you can take the additional augmentation at the end of where you are and use that to lead you into a new part. So it's just copying, sharing, expanding a little bit, adding a little bit on there. Is that Roy? He's on there too. That's good. That's nice to see you. Nice to see you. Just got online. So as a vehicle for supporting improvisation and sympathetic improvisation with someone, it really is a very useful tool. You don't have to, don't be scared that you need to know anything about music or music theory to do that, but you just need to make sure that the Skoog is accessible to you and to your client or the person you're working with in a way that they can touch it to be able to make sounds on it. And that's really all the basis you need to start kind of working through a kind of imitation and elaboration kind of improvisation. I would also, another really important thing is to leave space for an autistic person to be able to make sounds on their own as well. Not necessarily, you may not be able to leave them alone, you may not want to obviously leave them alone with the technology, but give them some time and some room to be able to play around things, and don't let any preconceptions of what you may think music should be or how it should be structured engage in that. If they want to do all kinds of crazy movements and do all kinds of crazy things, then let them do that. You need to let them explore the sounds in a way that's safe for them to do so. And another really useful feature of Skoog and a very useful thing to do is to allow them to record what they're for them and allow them to get a feeling for what they're doing. So that's another really useful element. And be prepared to explore the sounds down into the sort of really fine detail. You'll find that autistic clients may begin focusing very specifically on a particular quality or character of a particular sound, and support them in doing that. Allow them to do that. One thing you might want to do, I mean, if say using the say one of the woodwind sounds, if you were so, then as long as the person has sufficient movement to access the Skoog to give it a decent squeeze. I mean, you can set it up to be very sensitive, so you don't need to use much movement. But if they have got a reasonable range of movement, then by decreasing the sensitivity on the software, then what you do is you create a wider palette for exploring the kind of expressive elements. So if I turn the sensitivity down on my Skoog here, we go back here. So now you can turn it down a bit more, actually. There we go. So there you can see on the top. There's more room for me to play with that kind of no onset and the generation of the sound. And that will be different for the different kind of elements of sound. But if you find, it's about finding the sound that they enjoy manipulating with the Skoog and enjoying that kind of twisting. Open out the twist tilt functions early. So with different types of user, you might not be using the twist tilt functions because you're focusing on just simple sound creation and stuff. But when working with autistic clients, then to provide them with that element where they are in control and are able to manipulate and twist the sound, and that's an important thing to be able to do. And so you will probably want to open out that element, which is just the buttons at the bottom of the Skoog window, the kind of Skoog image on them, and open out the twist tilt functions early. One really important thing that another therapist reminded me of last week, actually, and I think it's worth reiterating, is performing to the child as well. So show them that you can do it too. So sometimes it's difficult, to go into a situation and you're trying to get the children get a child to interact with the Skoog and play it, but if you're not able to take on that same level of kind of responsibility and play it as well, if you're putting all the onus on the child, then that can be quite demanding. It can be quite imposing. So make sure that you're prepared. Make sure that you have some things that you can play on it for yourself, so that you can show the child what's expected of them and what they're expected to do, and that helps build the context of the interaction. It's important to be flexible as well, as I was talking earlier about the timing of things. But if you are doing kind of improvisation stuff and you're you're doing call and answer type things, you're leaving space that's not necessarily that goes beyond the kind of phrase length or the rhythm that you're playing. Be adaptable, and also be adaptable in your session. I was doing a session in a school in Warrington last week, and we had a group of 4, a class session, and we had 3 children that were in chairs, and they were varying abilities, and we were playing to a kind of backing track, and we had one other student who wasn't in the group, but was sitting in the corner and was playing around and interacting with the wall, making noises in terms of banging and sort of percussive kind of thing. So what sometimes you do find with autistic clients, they can be hard to engage, hard to reach, and the way you can use Skoog with that, just other tips are, if they are, so this particular young person was banging a metal, was it a table, I suppose it was, and it was making a good sound, but he was kicking it, and he was over there. So what you can do is what you want to do is try and get him to identify with the Skoog or whatever device you're using, whatever instrument, that they can use that to create the sound, and they can use that to control their stimulation environment. So every time he kicked this table, we made a sound on the Skoog synchronously with his actions, and in the course of 2 or 3 minutes, as opposed to just presenting the Skoog and going, oh come on, do this, by joining his world, by joining what he's doing, by taking an element of what he's doing, the time when he's hitting this table and actually playing in time with him and stopping when he stopped, that created that kind of bridge of focus where he was like, okay, so that thing's able to make a sound, and I can maybe use that. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the kind of allowing the person space, also physical space. This can be difficult if you're dealing with people who may bite the Skoog as it works. You don't want it to get damaged, and it is a material that's tempting to people who like to bite things. But if that's not the case, then being able to walk away from the Skoog and leave space for them to be able to come in and interact with it without you being crowding them in that way, it is really important, and can be a real winner really in terms of making sure you're getting that kind of engagement. And always make sure you're ready to explore the unusual. So you may find, and we did talk about this last week as well, but I think it is important to try and use, you can use Skoogs from sounds from the environment, sounds that are familiar to the individual, and allow them to layer them, explore how you can combine those sounds in different ways, and how they can interact with how you knead and squeeze the Skoog in different ways for exploring that, and allow you to build layers, build chunks of expressive kind of sound making, as opposed to being too focused on necessarily playing a melody or playing a tune. And through exploring those sounds and allowing the young person to lead that journey, you'll find you'll go to some really interesting places. I would, as this is supposed to be an interactive webinar, I would ask, I'd just like to say hello to Roy. I don't know if you wanna, do you want to chat? Oh, we've got a new message. I do love this technology. Let's have a look at this. What's it saying? Aha. To list all Roy Tal. Hey, to list all available commands. What does that mean, Roy? I'm not sure. Enter. I'm not sure what you mean by that. You can talk, by the way. You don't have to turn your microphone off. Can you turn your microphone on, Roy? And oh, you've got no microphone. There you go. Okay. Well, it's nice to see you. How are you getting on with your Skoog? always a new. Great. That's good. Slowly, slowly. Okay. One of the things that one of the things I think that aside from this quality which autistic clients seem to really respond to, the tactile nature of the object and the fact that it is an object that can exist separately. So as opposed to something like a flute or a violin that is really an extension of your body as an instrumentalist, it's not something you can really share with the young person. Something like Skoog really does do that. The other thing is to show by doing. So when you are playing, make sure that they can see what you're doing. If you have just one Skoog, hopefully, if you have two and one person can have their own one, that's great. But sometimes if you each have a Skoog and you're working one-to-one, then that can sometimes lead to you both being in your own worlds, and not necessarily joining up. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine, and enjoy exploring sound. But you really want to try and cross over and create that bridge and communicate. And so sometimes limiting it to one, if there's two of you, is actually kind of a really productive thing to do. So that you do have to take turns, or you do have to kind of interact around the object, which means you're forced to be sensitive to what they're doing, and in a way they're going to have to integrate that into what you're doing, but that will unfold in different ways. But by working with a single Skoog, that can actually, just the pragmatics of the setup and the fact that you only have one instrument that you have to share, then that creates a sort of platform for co-improvisation and sort of sympathetic kind of music making, which is really useful. We've got another listener. I'm not sure who it is, but I'm not sure if they've got any questions. Other person who is listening, who is this? Rich, do you have any specific questions? If you're about working with Skoog, this is a little focus one. If you haven't come across Skoog before and you're listening or watching, then this is a Skoog here. It's a tactile musical instrument, or it's a tactile sensor, essentially, this object that is designed for kind of play and engagement, that has its own software platform, and you can assign it to, you can choose it to be a different type of instrument, and you assign notes to the surfaces, and then people can play that in a variety of different ways in different contexts. So just a little mention there, because I'm not sure whether you'd come across Skoog before. So those are the kind of points I want to go through. Important as well, if you're working with, it can be difficult in a school context, because if you're in a class, then often it's a group and it's a mixed ability group, and it's difficult to balance those things. There's a question from Roy. Have I come across people that are not Skoog compatible? Not so much. I have come across one example in terms of autism now, and that was a young person who was really averse to the colour red, and he just wouldn't interact with anything with red. So we even tried keeping the Skoog inside a case, inside one of the Skoog cases. Although this is a bad example because this is a red one, right? But it was a black one and zipped up, and you can play the Skoog through the case because it's still tactile. You can sense it, but that didn't work for him either. He still knew the red was on the inside, and so he wouldn't stand for it. In terms of specific disabilities and groups, it does vary, but if someone is, say, quadriplegic and has no movement from the neck down, then that can be, there's not a great I mean, you can mount the Skoog so you can play it with your head, but as a quadriplegic, it doesn't really have much head movement either, and that really can be a problematic thing. But we're working on some new eye gaze stuff as well, which is interesting, which we hope to be able to service people like that. So I suppose, yeah, I mean, if you do have to have some movement to be able to play Skoog, and so there are certain, if you're quadriplegia or complete paralysis, then it's not going to be possible for you to interact with it. Things like Engelmann's syndrome and other sort of disabilities that lead to very sort of low muscle tone and kind of very limited pressure, they can be problematic. But I've always found a way of getting Skoog set up to enable them to play. Sometimes it means that some of the instrument sounds require more pressure than the others. So, say the flute and a couple of the other woodwinds require more pressure, say, than the clarinet. The brass requires the least. The percussive stuff can be very sensitive, and so being able to get people working with it, but maybe not having as wide a range or choice of sounds as you might like due to the fact that they're limited mobility. I'm trying to think of any other examples. Again, quite often with autistic young people, they haven't wanted to engage or don't want to engage with it in a traditional way, but then using the ability to be able to create different sound palettes. So there are some people that are sort of incompatible with the more traditional instrument sounds, but if you then use their own voice or mechanical sounds or switches in terms of sounds of clicking or more percussive sounds and using those on Skoog, and that can be really good for engaging and inviting them in and getting them that way. So yeah, I would say not totally. I haven't met many people that aren't Skoog compatible. There are occasions when. Okay, so another question here from Roy. What can I do when the song has more than 5 notes? Well, I would encourage you to download the Arranging Music for Skoog PDF that's on the website. There's some notes there, no pun intended, on how to arrange music for Skoog in terms of possibly omitting passing notes, using octaves where possible. But the other thing is you can change the notes as you're going along, and this is something that, like, when you say it out loud, you're like, all right, yeah, of course you can. But sometimes it doesn't occur. So, I mean, I was doing a little tune on Facebook today, and it does have a key change in it that shifts, and just so you can use the transpose slider as you're playing, just to shift up the key if you want to do it like that. The other thing, in terms of doing songs, what we do is create note files for different sections, and you can load a new set of notes in. Again, so obviously you need to the section needs to exist within that kind of 5-note format. In terms of doing songs with melodies that run over 5 notes, the short answer to what can I do if, say, the melody in the song has more than 5 notes is have more Skoogs. But that's quite an expensive answer to the question. So that is one way of doing it, is doing that. But the other thing is is to look at how you arrange your Skoog part. Yeah, no, I like the solution of having more Skoogs, and that's a teacher in the States that said that's what she does. She's lucky enough to have, I think, 4 in her class, and if she wants to play something complex, she just spreads the notes across the Skoogs. You can, yeah. So in terms of, there's another question here from Roy. Can I plug more than one Skoog in? So at the moment, with the software that ships with Skoog, you can plug 2 Skoogs into a single computer. That should run fine. It is possible and it is possible for us to unlock a version that allows you to plug more in. However, a word of caution: more than 2, if you're running the physical models, will be quite demanding for a system. So we do ask you to check with us on that sense. But 2 can run fine, and also with 2 you have the opportunity to pan them left and right. And in terms of trying to maintain that kind of sensory integration, and if you've got stereo speakers, then you can have, keep someone's sound localized here and someone's sound localized there, and so you can keep that kind of mental separation of the sounds. If you have more than 2 sounds, then you could have one in the middle and have like kind of, you've got a 3D surround system, but that's not that likely. But more than that, you are going to be just a diffuse sound field, and you have to deal with that. But it depends on different settings. The most we've had running off a single computer is 5, and the issues you get in reference to USB, just following on that, is power. So some PCs that you'll find, some of their USB ports don't send out enough power. So in that case, you just use a powered hub. So if you plug say you were to plug a couple of Skoogs and had a smartboard or whatever plugged in as well to a laptop, the Skoogs probably wouldn't work correctly because the smartboard's drawing too much power. So the amount of power that's on the board that's coming out that it needs to draw to power the sensor is an issue. And if you do get any problems with that, then you can just use a powered hub, and that fixes it fine. So that's us coming to the end of the little half hour. I hope I've managed to share a couple of different things. I would just go back on the autism tip of saying, so improvisation and empathetic improvisation is something you can really support using imitation and elaboration. But the other thing that I found has been really, really great as well is with sort of older, say teenage autistic clients, then using the Top Tunes resource, the Pop Tunes page that we have, and allowing users to select a tune, playing it on YouTube and engaging with it. And you can help them with that, in terms of setting it up and being there, but really allowing them to explore that themselves and explore how they can interact with tunes that they really love and they really like. And that I found has been a really positive experience, and a really just a really useful resource. I think currently the songbook on there is over 100 tunes now, and it's growing day by day. I mean, I think in total the Skoog songbook's about 210 tunes that we have that we provide kind of material for, and it's all free. So do make use of that. But that's, yeah. So we're coming to the end of the half hour. I'll just sort of reiterate some key points. If you're doing music with autistic young people, make sure you plan the session ahead. And try to take into account the person's sensory differences, and really try and be prepared. Explore the sounds in as many ways as you can. Short, long, low, high, tap, squeeze, rolled. Really try and provide variety. Make sure you are able to perform for the child, so you can play too, so you can show them what's expected in this. Give them space, both rhythmically and musically, but also physically as well. It depends on the individual and the situation you're in, but be prepared to give them space. Be prepared to walk away. Allow them time to come into it themselves. Okay. Explore the unusual. Looking at different sounds in different ways, and squeezing, opening up the twist tilt functions, getting to grips with that, and just always be flexible and be prepared to challenge your own ideas of what music is and what it can be, because and just approach it with an open mind, and you'll be amazed at where you can go. So that's me. That's 4 o'clock in the UK. Roy, just as an aside, you're scheduled? You're coming over to the UK, and Yes, and I'm seeing you. Is it on the 11th? Is that right? Yeah, great. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Send me an email with your details and everything, and we'll hook up then. Looking forward to seeing you in person. And to everyone else, I'll catch you another time. We've got more webinars next week, so stay tuned, and I will speak to you all then. Cheers. Bye-bye now.